So we are in a 2020 Kona EV. It's made by Hyundai, and this is the ultimate package. So it's got the battery warmer, it's got heated and cooled seats, a couple of other fancy tech features. But at the end of the day, the Hyundai Kona EV, whether it is a Ultimate or a Limited or an SEL or whatever trim level it is, for the first gen Kona EVs, to my knowledge, has the exact same motor and the exact same battery, so they all get pretty much the same amount of range. Now, we are going on a road trip that is supposed to be 251 miles according to Google, and we have 258 EPA estimated range on this vehicle. Now, I've already been driving for 22.2 miles, and it's saying we have 256 miles of range, and that's actually pretty good because we've already driven 22 miles and we're still at pretty much its max range according to the little computer on the car, which is guessing how much range we're going to get. Something I found out is that this Kona EV is actually really good at guessing the range that you get. It generally gives you a bit of a conservative number, so it's saying 256, now 255. More than likely, I'm going to get a little bit more than that. That's just something I've noticed with this vehicle. We get a little bit more range than what the little guessometer actually tells you you're going to get. So our first destination is an hour, 11 minutes away. It is 56 miles away, so that should not be a problem at all. However, we are going to the mountains in North Carolina, so once we get off the highway, we're going to start to go up a lot of mountains, and the speeds are going to drop, or there's going to be a lot of turns and twists, and we're going to be going uphill a very good way. So it'll be interesting to see what that does to our range. How does that impact the range? How does the vehicle calculate a new range estimate? And then as we're coming back down from the mountains, will we actually gain way more range by using regen? Now, for the most part in this vehicle, I always drive it in normal mode. Right now I am in eco mode, and I hardly ever drive it in eco mode, but the reason why I'm putting it in eco mode is because eco mode does reduce the amount of power your climate control uses. Now, thankfully, the temperature is 55 degrees outside. I do have the heater on because I wanted to heat up the cabin a bit. However, I'm going to turn it off because I don't need the heater on anymore. The cabin's already nice and warm, but I did want to share with you guys a kind of cool trick that you can use to increase your range with the climate control system. And this only works some of the time. So like right now, it's sunny outside, but the temperature is 55 degrees outside. So the sun is heating up the cabin of the vehicle. However, I don't want to run the air conditioning to actually cool down the cabin of the vehicle because that's just going to use energy. So if I just hit the off climate control button, as you can see, the climate control right now is blowing air down to my feet. If I hit the button off, thankfully with this climate control system, it actually keeps the pathway from the intake for your climate control air, the intake to your vents, it keeps that pathway open. And it keeps it open on the last known preset, which is right now to the floor. But I want cool air coming out of the top vents because that's going to keep the upper part of the cabin cool. It's going to keep my face and my upper body cool, and that's exactly what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it to blow air out of the vents, and then I'm just going to hit the off button and turn off the climate control. So now there's actually cool air coming. Well, right now it's a little bit warm because the heater was just on, but it'll cool down to the outside ambient temperature, which is 54 degrees, and it'll be blowing nice cool air into the vehicle. If I'm at a dead stop, it's not going to be blowing any air, but as we're driving down the road, there is a buildup of high air pressure where the wiper blades are, and that is actually where it sucks up the air from the outside to put it into the cabin of the vehicle. And that is a neat feature because with some vehicles, when you turn off the climate control, it actually closes the air system to where air cannot get into the vehicle at all if the climate control is in the off position. I don't know if Hyundai intentionally did this or if it was just kind of an accidental thing they did that worked out pretty good, but if you set your climate control vents to blow out of these top vents and then turn the system off, it'll blow nice cool air out of these vents when you're at highway speeds and you're not using any electricity. There's no fan currently running. The AC isn't on, the heat isn't on, and that's going to increase our range. You can see now we're getting, according to the guessometer, 260 miles of range. Before we were at like 250, about 255. We've already driven 27 miles, so right now we're looking at getting 287 miles of range, and this car is only rated for 258. So right now we're on track to actually get better economy than what the EPA estimates, and that is something I've noticed with this vehicle. For the most part, most of the driving on the highway is just going to be done with cruise control. So right now we have 50 miles of range left, an hour and 6 minutes to go. I'm going to update you guys as we go on this trip. That way you can kind of see what our range estimate is, how much economy we're getting. Right now we're getting 3.7, oh, it just changed to 3.6 miles per kilowatt. We've been going uphill a little bit, so as we go downhill, I'm sure that'll increase a little bit, and hopefully this whole round trip will give us at least 3.5 miles per kilowatt. That's what I'm hoping for. Right now cruise control is set to 65 miles an hour. The speed limit is 65 miles an hour, so we're not going to be rushing there, because obviously the faster we go, the less range we have, but we're not going to be trying to hypermile it. We're not going to be doing 55 into 65, trying to inch every little bit of power out of the battery we can. We're just going to drive it as I would a normal gas car if I was on a road trip, and see what it does, because a lot of people are scared to take EVs on road trips because they're concerned about the charging infrastructure, or they're concerned about range when you get up on a highway. Obviously, if you're on a highway primarily, which on a road trip you are going to get a little bit less range than what your car could get if it was doing mixed city and mixed highway. Alrighty, so we are leaving our first stop, and we have another 59 miles to drive. Something I want to show you is our altitude. We are actually at 4,081 feet. Before I said 3,000. It's actually 4,000. So we went from 700 feet to 4,000 feet. It says 43 degrees outside. It's still warming up though. We have the climate control off because the car is actually very toasty in here because the sun's been beating down on it. So we definitely don't need to run the heat, if anything, possibly the air conditioning, but I think it's going to cool down when we get driving. We are at 68% battery, and we have driven 79.1 miles. So pretty decent amount of battery used. That being said, we went uphill a whole bunch on really windy, twisty roads. We're going to go on a lot more windy, twisty roads. We're going to go uphill even more, but it'll be interesting to see when we're going downhill, how will our economy be impacted. Right now it's saying 3.4 miles per kilowatt, so it's not terrible, not quite 4 miles per kilowatt, but it'll be interesting to see if it says 4 miles per kilowatt on the way down. Okay, so we are at 56% battery remaining. We got 155 miles of range according to the estimate. We're just taking a little break at a lookout spot here. And as you can see, we have driven 115 miles. Our efficiency's actually gone up. We're at 3.9 miles per kilowatt. We have been going down a little bit in elevation. Not significantly. We've kind of gone up a bit too. We're at 3,467 feet. We were down a little bit lower than that, kind of on a bit of an uphill, just going up and down. These roads are very much windy, as you can see on the map. But we got 23 miles to go. It's saying 42 minutes before we get to our destination. Okay, we are almost done driving to the top. We are at 6,000 feet elevation now, and we have driven 135 miles. We have 112 miles of range, averaging 3.6 miles per kilowatt, and that number is going down pretty rapidly since we've been climbing. We were actually, believe it or not, averaging about 3.8 miles per kilowatt going all through these mountains, which is pretty impressive. We're at 43% battery, so all in all, not too bad. We still got to get home. We're almost there. It's going to be interesting to see, will the vehicle estimate we have enough range to make it back to our house, or do we have to plug in and charge somewhere? By the way, that's what our air climate is on. Again, no AC or heat. Don't need it. Outside's nice and cool. It's keeping the inside nice and cool. And that definitely helped us a lot, because if we were blasting the air conditioning or the heat, then yeah, we really would actually need, we would probably need to stop and charge, because we'd be eating into our battery a little bit. Something I do want to do is take you guys to the EV settings. Okay, so as you can see, it says climate 0. Now technically that's not 100% true, because the blower motor is on. If you look at that over there, blower motor is on. It says climate 0. We've used 95% of all of our energy is going to the battery, with electronics as 0.2126 kilowatt hours. So what I'm assuming is the blower motor is actually measured by the electronics, and it's not actually measured under climate, which is a very, very odd, though it does say 1%, but 0.00. That's actually very peculiar. I don't really know why it is saying that. Another thing we do have, though, is one of these little mini refrigerators. This uses 50 watts constantly, and it keeps our waters cool. Alright, you see the 14.5, that is our 12 volt battery voltage. I got the little splitter that tells me my voltage, so I can monitor the 12 volt battery voltage, and it's kept it nice and charged throughout this entire trip. It's been running that little refrigerator, so that's also eating into our range, just a very, very little bit. I mean, 50 watts of power is really not much at all. And now that I'm sitting still here, I'm actually getting a little bit hot. So I'm going to turn the defroster on. The air conditioning is on. Let me turn that back off, because we don't really need that, I don't think. But sitting here, this entire area is getting very warm, and I need to kind of push some of that warm air away. And the nice thing with the sunroof is that you can just open that up. There we go, let all that heat out. So that's kind of cool. Oh, actually no, it's just letting the sun now shine on my face. That's not very cool, so we're just gonna undo that. I've never understood the purpose of sunroofs or moonroofs in a car, because every time you open it, you just get blasted with sunlight, or you get rain in your car. I don't think you're supposed to use them when it's raining, though. That could just be a user error on my end. Anyway, I'll update you guys as we get to the top, and we will see how much range I have coming down. Alright, so we just came back from Mount Mitchell. We are at 41% battery, 106 miles of range, and I don't have any cell reception up here, so I can't actually put in any address to take me back home, but the navigation system actually on board the Kona, as crappy as it is, still works up here, and it says that it will take me about 95 miles to get back home. The thing is, we have 106 miles of range, so we're going to be pushing it, but our average has gone down since we've been going up a whole bunch. As we go back down to the house, we're going to go from, if I look at our elevation, we are at 6,473 feet, and we're going to go down to 700 feet above sea level. So we're going to drop near 6,000 feet in elevation. I think that's going to really help our range and our economy. So it'll be interesting to see, can we make it home? I think we will be fine. I don't really foresee us having any range anxiety as far as whether or not we can make it home. The entire trip I haven't really had to use the air conditioning. I did have to use the heat a little bit. But for the most part, our climate control settings are just set to where the blower motor's on, and it's 40 degree air outside, so it's blowing nice cool air inside. So I don't even have to run the air conditioning, which is nice. So I thought this was pretty cool. We started at 41% at the top of the mountain. We are at 43%. I have regened 5.8 miles going down the mountain. I've just been using regen to maintain my speed, keeping a safe distance behind the cars in front of me that are all using their brake pedals. And 6 miles regened into the battery. We were at 41, we're now at 43%.
We got 113 range now.
Yeah, our range has gone up dramatically too. And looks like we've come now to the bottom. So we started at 41, we're now at 43% battery, 6.33 miles of range. was added to the battery just going down from that summit. That is just really cool in my opinion, to be able to actually see the battery level go from 41 to 43%, and we got 6 miles of range added to the battery. That is just absolutely really amazing that these vehicles can do that. I didn't have to use any brake pad apart from when I approached that stop sign just to get to complete stop. Everything was just regen going downhill, and we're at now 3.8 miles per kilowatt. Now remember, we started this trip at 41% battery when we were at the top of the mountain. When we regened, we got up to 45%, and then we used just like a 1% just to get here because we're on more flat and level ground now. So we went from 41 to 45, now down to 44, as opposed to having 211 miles of range. It now says 221 miles of range. Our average miles per kilowatt is 4.7 now. So we actually now have plenty of range in order to get back home. We still had enough range before with the lower estimate it gave us, but having regened all that energy going down the mountain, we were definitely easily able to get back home without charging now. I'm not worried about it at all. One thing I did find out though, so when you're in eco mode and it tells you how many miles of range you're putting back into the battery whenever you regen, it'll only count up to 6.36 miles back into the battery. It will not get any higher than that. We were going down the mountain, and once it got 6.36, it just never got higher. And I was using the paddles. I was not using the brake pedal. I was just using the paddles. So I know that it wasn't switching over to brake pads or anything. We were using regen. We were putting energy in the battery. It only counts up to 6.36 miles back into the battery, though. The number just doesn't climb any higher than that, which is very odd. And I don't know why that's the case, but Hyundai, if you're watching this, can you fix that issue? That's just kind of weird. I don't understand why it can only go to 6.36 miles added back into the battery. Like, in theory, it should be able to count further up than that, because it really would have been interesting to see just how many miles of range I put into the battery in that one stretch of downhill. But we are going to eat, and then we're just going to head back to the house, and then we'll see what our battery is whenever we are there. Okay, so we have 36 miles to go, and it is showing 90 miles of range. Battery is down to 33%. My efficiency is 4.6 miles per kilowatt, and so far we've driven 197 miles. So when we started this trip, we had a range estimate of thereabouts of about 280 miles. It was estimating we could go on a full charge. And from the looks of things, that's still holding pretty accurate despite all the mountainous area we drove through. So that's really impressive. I am so far very pleased with this car because the range estimate on it is very accurate. I mean, it's not giving me any issues, no range anxiety, no nothing. It's just been a very, very good EV when it comes to estimating its range. So once we get to our destination, it'll be interesting to see how much charge is left in the battery. We're at 33% right now. I feel plenty comfortable, more than comfortable, with easily getting to my destination. I'm not worried about not getting there at all. It's saying 4.6 miles per kilowatt still, and that seems a little bit high because we are on the highway now. Cruise control is set to 70. Yeah, we're at 65 right now because it's following the vehicle in front of me who's, well, I guess going about 65. So I'm just kind of coasting along here in the slow lane. And then once I drop down to about 60, I'll hop on over and pass whoever's being too slow. But for the most part, I mean, this trip we've had absolutely no issues. And this is our first road trip we've actually taken the EV out on. And it was a road trip that appeared to really tax the EV's range and efficiency, because the EV's rated at, or this particular one is rated at 258 miles, This trip was supposed to be 251 miles. It'll be interesting to see how accurate Google is compared to the trip meter. Right now we have, you could say 200 miles driven, 33 miles to go. So it's saying basically a 230 mile round trip, whereas before it was saying 250. So that's a little bit odd. I don't know if Google's estimate was a bit wrong or if the vehicle's estimate is a bit wrong. I would imagine Google probably is, because it obviously can change as you are driving around and you choose to take maybe a more efficient road. That might change how many miles are in total driven. Alrighty, so we have made it. 231.9 miles driven at 18% battery with 50 miles of range left. Now, granted, we're not exactly at my house. We're like about a mile or two up the road from my house. Reason why I am not going to my house, because I actually have to stop by the Ingles, and they have free charging. So while we're stopped here, we can get a little bit of free charging. Not that we need it. My house is 2 miles away. We have 50 miles of range. But anytime you can get free electricity, I always tries to choose those businesses over businesses that do not give you free energy. Food Line, I'm looking at you. If you're watching this, be more like your Ingle cousin. Ingle's cousin? I don't know how you say that. But anyway, Food Line. Put these in there because I kind of like shopping at you better. Your prices are better. Anyway, if we look at our climate usage, it is 0. Battery care, obviously 0. All the power went to the motor. Haven't had to use the climate really at all while we're driving, because the air kind of blows through the vents, keeps us nice and cool. While we're sitting here, actually kind of heating up a bit, I am going to now turn the air on. One of the reasons why we've gotten such good efficiency on this trip is because the climate control stayed off most of the time and the weather's been really nice. So that helped out a lot. There's also another reason why my Kona Electric gets very good range. And that is why. I don't know if you can see that right there, but look at those tire pressures. 50 PSI. Now one is a little low, and I'll explain why that one tire is a little low and the other tires are at 50. I'm actually going to do that in another video though. But the tire pressure of your EV dramatically impacts your range, performance, handling, longevity of the tire. That's going to be its own separate video though, because when I dive into that conversation, it's going to take a while for me to get done. So if you wanted to watch that video, just stay tuned. I'll come out with that video at some point. If we go to my accumulated info, I finally hit 4 miles per kilowatt hour. And that is averaging out 1,897 miles driven, which is pretty impressive. I'm actually pretty pleased with the performance of this EV and how good it's been. Well, if you have any questions, leave it in the comments. I'll see if I can answer it. And if you have any video ideas that you want me to make with this vehicle, just go ahead and leave that in the comments too. And maybe if I can get off my ass, I'll actually take the time to make one of those videos. Thanks for watching.